What's up, everyone? Welcome to Lowered Expectations. Thanks for lowering your expectations and hanging out with me here. I do appreciate it. I have a feeling like a bunch of people are going to watch this video who don't regularly watch my channel, so I feel it's important to point a few things out. I don't talk about how to save 90% on your energy bill, how to get free energy by poking a stick in the ground or sticking one in the sky, and I don't talk about how to heal yourself with a magnet and a tea leaf. I have been struggling with a diesel heater trying to burn waste engine oil for well over a year. I have probably about 60 videos in a series where I've done a bunch of modifications to my heater. If you want to check out that playlist, it will be here. I've done a huge number of tests on my diesel heater on this channel, and while some of them were successful, most of them were not practical or cost effective. We've burnt paint thinner, Verisol, gasoline, alcohol, and even automatic transmission fluid fairly successfully in one of my modified heaters. However, what we are going to do today is actually save about 40% on your diesel heater bill by using a very specific procedure and mixed ratio. I should point out to my regular viewers that while most of my heaters are modified and hacked apart, this test is going to be done with a purely stock untouched heater directly out of the box. So the results that I get with my heaters should be achievable by you as well. A huge thanks to everyone who has been suggesting vegetable oil as a fuel. I've had this suggestion on my video ever since my very first diesel heater video, which was a little over a year and 2 months ago, linked here. I've had an equal number of people telling me that they've actually tried to burn vegetable oil and it usually ends the same. Works well for a couple of weeks and then they get a sticky, nasty, carbony mess. Usually ends up with a ruined chamber. Well, I think there is a very specific mix ratio and a very specific procedure that you need to follow, and we are going to get into that next. The mix ratio that I've used is 50% diesel, 40% vegetable oil, and 10% gasoline. If you're going to use waste vegetable oil, make sure that it doesn't have a bunch of moisture content in it, and also make sure that you've filtered it well. I plan on doing some experiments in the future where I try to get more vegetable oil and less of the other things, but I would suggest that you just stick to this ratio unless you're willing to do some experiments yourself. And if you're going to do them, make sure that you film them so that we can all see. The next thing is that you're going to want two separate tanks. You want a fresh diesel tank to start and shut down the heater on, and then you can switch over to your vegetable oil mix. The procedure that I used is starting up on the diesel, waiting until the temperature stabilizes, and then switching over to the vegetable oil mix. And then on shutdown, or after the heater had been running for 4 hours, I would actually switch over to diesel and let it run for 15 minutes before either continuing on the vegetable oil mix or shutting it down. Trying not to make a big mess. Well, it sure has a nice consistency. It's very thin. All right, I'm gonna let this heater run for a while and allow these lines to clean out. We've got quite a bit of junk in the fuel filter and in the fuel line. This is waste motor oil from one of my last tests. So we're gonna allow this to all run through. When it's all cleaned out, then we will switch out heaters and start the actual test. Did the string touch you? Did the string touch you? I now have the shelf cleared off and I am ready to install the new heater. The heater that I will be using for this test is a very basic 5 kilowatt diesel heater that I got from Viver. We are simply going to take this heater that has literally been used once for demonstrating for a video. It ran for a total of probably half an hour, and we are going to start pumping a vegetable oil mix through it. Starting with diesel, of course, and shutting down with diesel as per many viewers' recommendations. Because I've already tested this heater and I know that in normal mode the heat exchanger runs at 210 Celsius and in alpine mode it runs at 180 Celsius, we are going to run it in both of those modes and check to see what the temperature of the heat exchanger is, and we're also going to check the carbon monoxide, because I believe we had, what was it, about 20 or 22 parts per million in normal mode and about 11 or 12 parts per million in alpine mode. So that is good data that we can compare the vegetable oil mix to. Diesel switched off, vegetable oil turned on, and away we go. You can actually see a couple bubbles coming through from the vegetable oil here. Not looking good so far, folks. The temperature has dropped to 186 Celsius. I have switched back over to diesel in hopes that it corrects itself if I try this again. About 15 minutes has passed and the temperature seems to have stabilized between 208 and 210. I checked the carbon monoxide about 10 minutes ago and it was at a little over 42 parts per million. So I'm gonna go check it again. That is twice as high as it is when it's burning diesel. And so I'm gonna go check it and then we're gonna switch it to alpine mode. We'll run it there for a little while and I'll check it again. We'll see what happens. It's not nasty, but it definitely has an odor. Okay, 63 parts per million. 63 parts per million carbon monoxide, and if I remember correctly, in this setting, in normal mode, it was 20 or 22 parts per million. So I'm gonna switch it over to the alpine mode and see if it cleans up some. In order to get it into alpine mode, I believe we push and hold these two buttons. The blue mountain appears and the temperature will start to drop. I'll come back in 10 or 15 minutes when this is stabilized. 180 degrees Celsius, which is exactly where it settles when I am running on diesel. So now let's go outside and check to see what the carbon monoxide is. I don't know if you guys will be able to see this. Oh, that's pretty promising. 11, 12, 14. Okay, that is good. Highest I saw was 15 parts per million. That is quite promising, a high of 15 parts per million, so I am going to leave it running in alpine mode. I can't even remember what it was running in the normal mode, but I know that it was over 60 parts per million, and that is a little bit high. So hopefully if we leave it run here, we will get longer run time without any issues, or maybe no issues whatsoever. It is now the next morning. The heater has been running for a total of about 10 hours. I just topped up the fuel tank and I switched it over to diesel to let it clean out for a little while. And when I did, I saw the temperature spike up a little bit. So I'm assuming that there was some crud built up in there and it burning off is why it heated up. It seems to be settling down a little bit now. Let's go take a look. The temperature had jumped up to 198. And it is currently running at 190. I'm not sure how long I'm going to leave. Oh, 188. Not sure how long I'm going to leave it run. Ideally, I would like to leave it run until it returned down to like 180 or 184. When I came out, I should mention, I came out into the garage, it was 176 Celsius. So the temperature had dropped from 180 to 176 overnight. And so yeah, it actually spiked up quite a bit when I switched over to diesel. The heater has now been running for one full evening and one full day. About 24 hours actually, the heater has been running steady. And the temperature is at 180 degrees Celsius, which is a good sign because that's where it normally runs with diesel. And we have about a liter left in here. It is the following morning, 11:30 a.m. It is 20.5 degrees Celsius in my garage, and the heater has been running for very approximately 36 hours. We are down to under 1 liter of vegetable oil mix. It has been running for about 12 or 13 hours since we last spoke, and I am now running it through a clean out cycle. You can see the diesel valve is on, the oil valve is off, and we had made it all the way up to 210. It is currently at 200, so that means that it is burning something off. It was running at 184 Celsius before I switched over to diesel. You can see that temperature is going down. I think it's going to continue to drop as it burns off deposits that were left behind from the vegetable oil. And that brings us to a very interesting thing that happened. One of my viewers named Adam, who works for XL Canada Lubricants, very generously sent me a couple of bottles of diesel treatment. And the one that I am very interested in is the XL+7 Diesel Nitro Daily, which is a cetane booster and also a conditioner. Of course, this product is not designed for a diesel heater. It is designed for a diesel engine, but we're gonna test it out anyway and see what happens. I've decided to time myself to see how long it actually takes to pull the heater off the shelf, bring it over here, and completely disassemble it. It is currently 11:56 a.m. So let's get started. Spin the nut off, remove the cover. Remove the grommet, remove the rubber seal from the bottom. Pull it out of the case. It comes out a lot easier than both the 2 kilowatt and the max peating rods. Oh, that's a Phillips screw. I've never had this one apart before. I think this is the only heater that I own that I've never had apart. Okay, that popped apart without damaging the gasket. However, we do need to... Oh, we've got a little bit of leakage out through the flame initiation hole. Very interesting. Glow plug is not dirty. Chamber coming out. Okay, wow. What is all that yellow? Is that sulfur? I don't know if the camera will pick up on this, but that is very, it doesn't look on the screen like it's showing up as yellow as it is. That is very yellow, and there is a bunch in here as well. I want to be careful not to clean this out because we want to put it back together as is. Very interesting. The good news is we don't have a huge amount of buildup. Let's take a look down inside here and see if we can actually see what is going on. We've got a little bit of buildup. You can see on the mesh there's a little bit of carbon deposits. I'm going to rotate the chamber. This is going to be shaky. I apologize. That's just the way inspection cameras work. So as you can see, there is a bit of buildup there, nothing to be concerned about, but along the back there, in between those gear teeth where you can see the bit of yellow and then there's the shiny spot, that looks like a carbon buildup on the back side of the chamber. On this part of the chamber, but on the inside, basically. Now what we're going to do is put this thing back together exactly how it is without cleaning anything, and then we are going to add some of this XL Canada Lubricants XL+7 Diesel Nitro Daily. I am going to use the recommended quantity of this. I'm not going to do anything crazy experimental. It is experimental enough as it is. If I've done my math correctly, that means that I only need to add 2.5 milliliters to 4 liters of mixture. So that seems ridiculously low, but that is what I've come up with, and so that's what we're going to use. I'm going to use this syringe to make sure that I measure accurately. The heater is all back together now, and I'm going to run it for at least another 36 hours. We're going to burn through the rest of this fuel, but we are going to use the XL Canada Lubricants additive and see if that makes any difference. It is the next morning. We have burnt through almost 3 more liters of fuel. I'm going to top it back up I've already switched it over to diesel. We're doing a clean out burn. I have noticed with the XL Canada lubricants additive, when I'm burning the waste oil, or sorry, vegetable oil mix, it is about actually it was 188 Celsius when I came out, so that's 8 degrees hotter burning the waste oil. It is about 8 degrees hotter when it's burning the vegetable oil mix. So I've been running it for quite a while now. I'm almost at a diesel. Okay, let's switch back over to the vegetable oil and continue on with this test. I've got the fuel tank tipped up on end so we can get as much fuel as possible out of it. We'll come back in the morning and take a look inside. It is the following morning and the vegetable oil mix is all gone, meaning that the heater has burnt through 8 liters of vegetable oil in total, along with a whole bunch of diesel and some gasoline. I'm now running it through a clean out cycle because it did shut down last night while burning the vegetable oil mix. So I've run it for about 20 minutes. I'm gonna shut it off now, and the next thing you guys will see is the heater apart. We're gonna find out what it looks like inside. I decided to take a look inside the exhaust port before pulling the heater apart, and what I'm seeing in there is actually quite shocking. Hopefully it turns up on camera. I'm using my iPhone. Oh yeah, it's gonna work. That is incredibly clean. You can see bare steel on that burn chamber, and there is almost nothing inside of the exhaust port itself. The glow plug itself is clean. There's a little bit of gunk built up around the threads. You can see there's a bit of a dark spot around there. And the only thing I can think is that fuel is coming out through the flame initiation hole, or it had at some point. Maybe I flooded it real bad at one point. Maybe that was when it was brand new. So we'll set this aside without looking in it. I can tell by looking at the outside that it looks very clean. And inside of here, it looks like we have quite a bit less of that yellow stuff. This could be because we are burning the XL Canada lubricants additive. There is considerably less of that yellow stuff. I will take a photo with my phone and we can compare the two. There is a little bit of ash buildup in the bottom of the heat exchanger, but yeah, definitely nothing that I would be concerned about. All right, let's find that other photo so we can try to get one that's the same. Oh yeah, there is a big difference. I'm going to say there's a considerable difference between this and when I was not using the XL Canada lubricants. The color isn't coming through quite right because I do have the light on my phone. The carbon that was in there the first time after 4 liters of vegetable oil was burnt doesn't seem to have increased. So let's see if we can take a look at some of this stuff. This is kind of the biggest chunk of stuff that I've found. Very interesting. What is probably more important than what the exchanger looks like is what the burn chamber looks like. On the outside, it does have a little bit of yellowing, kind of like before, but we didn't clean it off last time, so probably that's just the same stuff as before. It hasn't built up any thicker. There is a little bit of a black haze to it now instead of just being yellow. I was worried about it oxidizing, and the oxides haven't gone any further since the last test. All right, let's take a look inside the chamber. I can see already there's not a huge buildup because we can quite clearly see that mesh. On the top right, on the top right, that is where the fuel actually comes in. And yeah, I'm going to say that this is really good news. there is approximately the same amount of carbon, maybe a little bit less than there was when we finished burning 4 liters. So we have now burnt 8 liters, and if this was building up, there would be twice as much carbon after burning twice as much fuel. And that is simply not the case. I'm now going to put on my 3M mask and clean out the exchanger just to see how much buildup is actually in there. Until I rub it down with a wire brush, it's hard to see actually how much buildup is on the walls. Doesn't look like very much. I assume it's not going to be very much, but we're going to brush it out, pour that onto a piece of paper towel, and have a look. This is what I cleaned out of the exchanger. So almost nothing. Very small amount of crud. If you have access to vegetable oil, whether it's new or used, and you're currently burning diesel or kerosene, I would absolutely recommend that you give this a try. It is going to be a huge cost savings. That being said, I did only run my heater on the max setting. I always run my heaters on the max setting. And so if you're going to try this, I would monitor the heater closely, maybe take it apart if you're going to be running it on the lower settings, and kind of check it to see if you're getting any kind of a buildup. I would also recommend getting yourself a carbon monoxide meter. If you have a diesel heater, you should probably have one anyway, but if you're going to be burning alternative fuels, as you guys saw, one of the first things that I did was check the carbon monoxide, and I pretty much guarantee you that if I would have kept running it in normal mode, the outcome would have been much different. I might put a bunch of the XL Canada lubricants additive in and try it again at some point on the normal mode and see if it just burns hotter perhaps, but I would recommend just sticking to this procedure. I tried not to let the heater run for any more than 4 hours, but a couple of times I actually let it run for 13 hours before doing a clean out on it. And my clean out burns were usually, again, once every 4 hours, and I would run them for about 15 minutes. So I would recommend following that procedure. Before I end this video, I wanted to say that Viver is now selling replacement glow plugs. A bunch of you have asked me where to get them, so I will leave an affiliate link in the description below if you need to pick one of those up. Viver has also said yes to sending me 3 more things, which are really cool. One is a plasma cutter, and the other 2 things are going to be tested together. It is a carbon monoxide meter and an airspeed meter. Anemometer, maybe? Anyway, the plasma cutter, I'm going to be doing some interesting tests, and the anemometer, airspeed meter, and carbon monoxide meter, I am going to be testing to see if the porting that I did on my diesel heater fan housing was actually effective. I did some ridiculous porting on the fan housing on one of my heaters, and we are actually going to see if it increased airflow and if that airflow actually makes a difference in carbon monoxide output. So you can look forward to that in the near future. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. 1 minute and 35 with no airplane. That's got to be a record.